What is going on, online fitness coaches? Welcome to another episode of the Change Lives, Make Money Online Training Podcast. This is the #1 show for online fitness coaches who are trying to grow a successful online business. In today's episode, we are talking about 3 ways to get yourself out of a funk because frankly, it's after the long weekend. We might be coming into Monday feeling a little bit of a funk. And so I want to give you guys the insight and the inspiration to get you guys out of a funk. All right? Let's talk about getting out of a funk, getting yourself into a good place, getting yourself to a place where you feel like it's easy to take action. Now, before we get into today's episode, I just want to let you guys know that we are giving away $1,000 cash. So if you want to be entered to win $1,000 cash, all you got to do, screenshot any podcast episode, share it to your Instagram stories, tag me at BMarkFit, let me know that you're tuning in, and you're automatically entered to win $1,000. Now, before we get into today's episode, I actually want to talk about why it's so important. Why this is so important, because we're talking about mentality and we're talking about success and we're talking about getting yourself into momentum. But I feel like podcasts like this don't get the clout that they deserve and they don't get the attention that they deserve because a lot of people are focused on the wrong things. A lot of people are like, oh, I need strategy, I need blueprint, I need game plan. But then so many of you guys are so demotivated that you can't get yourself to post on social media once because you're discouraged or you're dealing with depression. And as a result of dealing with depression, it's like you're into a course and you're like all of the fucking blueprints are right in front of you, but you can't implement because you're in a funk, because you feel like shit, because you're not motivated, because you're not excited, because you're kind of like rolling through the motions of life. And so this podcast is titled 3 Ways to Get Yourself Out of a Funk. And I don't think that the right people are I don't think that there's enough of the right people that are going to be listening to this podcast because so many people are so focused on the wrong things. So many people are focused on strategy and game plan improvement. But if you're listening to this right now, you are the right person because you're the type of person that's focused on mindset. And if you focus on mindset, you will get the other things too. If you focus on mindset, you will get the income. If you focus on mindset, you will get the positive results. If you focus on mindset, you'll sign more clients than anybody that's focused on strategy. So let's talk about getting yourself out of a funk. And I would define a funk as this feeling of feeling like you're stuck, right? Feeling like nothing's moving forward, feeling like you're doing the same thing on repeat over and over and over and over again. Maybe you're in a funk because you're working at your 9 to 5 and you absolutely hate it and you want to get out of it, but you can't seem to figure out a way out. Maybe you're in a funk because you started your online coaching business and you're starting to attract clients, but for some reason it's just not working. And it's like you're not signing clients, you're not in momentum, you're not making money, and you're frustrated because you wonder what you're doing wrong. Right. So maybe that's why you're in a funk. Maybe you're just frustrated because you're posting all the time. You're doing the lead gen. Maybe you're in a program, but for some reason, it's just not working for you. And as a result, it's like you're struggling with your motivation. How many of you guys have been there? Maybe how many of you guys are there right now? Where you feel like nothing's working, where you feel like the momentum is not on your side, where you feel like everything that could go wrong is going wrong. That to me is the definition of a funk, right? I'm just not in a good place. I want to talk about the shift in mentality. And I want to talk about why it's important because I have 2 coaching programs, the 10K Academy and the 10K Mastermind. The 10K Academy is where I help online fitness coaches get their business started. And the 10K Mastermind is where I teach people to become a CEO of their businesses, like a CEO of their businesses and like a CEO of their lives and really take their life to the next level. And so in the 10K Academy, I teach a lot of strategy-based concepts, right? How to land clients with this TikTok CTA, or Cole just did a training on the 3 TikTok CTAs that are going to land you clients inside of the 10K Academy. And we do a lot of here are the 3 best ways to generate leads on your social media. That's a lot of the Academy stuff. I would say a large portion of the mastermind stuff, a big percentage, especially getting started, is mindset. Because the real secret to success is that if you can work on your business and be fucking excited about it, you become unstoppable. If you can work on your business and love every minute of it, man, the work isn't work and it becomes your passion. And if you can work on your business and you can work on your mindset so that every single day you're ready to absolutely slay your day, that's where you start seeing online coaches getting results like $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 months. Because when they're working on their business, they're fucking pumped about it versus feeling like it's a grind to post on social media. So let's talk about getting yourself out of a funk and getting yourself into a good place so that you can start to achieve higher and higher results in your fitness business. Now, for me, in my coaching business, you guys, I've been an entrepreneur since 2013, a long fucking time. It's been almost 8 years now, which is crazy for me to think about. It's been almost 8 years now. And out of the last 8 years, I've been consistent for about 3 to 4. And I really, like, when I say consistent, I mean like consistently growing, consistently on the podcast, consistently posting, consistently growing on social media, consistently on TikTok. Like, I've been consistent for the last 3 to 4 years. Now, even when I was an online fitness coach, you guys, like when I was running Aesthetic Nation and I had like 6 to 7 trainers working for me at a time, like at that point in time, I was still super inconsistent with my with my mindset. I was still super inconsistent with my moods. I was still super inconsistent with like who I was as a person. And as a result, you guys, like, man, it was like, I want you guys to know, for the first 3 to 5 years of my entrepreneurial journey, like I struggled with my mindset. Struggled. Like I'd be like consistent for a month or two, and then I'd fucking hit like a 1 or 2 week slump. And sometimes it'd be a 1 or 2 month slump. I remember when I went through my breakup when I was running Aesthetic Nation, like I was in a slump for like 4 to 6 months. And so step one is, for those of you guys that are listening to this right now that are in a funk, stop beating yourself up. If you're listening to this right now and you are in a mental funk, you're not signing clients, you're not in momentum, you lost motivation, you fell off track, you're demotivated, you're stressed out. Step number one is to like be fucking compassionate with yourself. You are a human. You are a human being. And if you are listening to this podcast right now, if you are tuning into this frequency, if you're listening to my words coming out of my mouth, that tells me that you are on the path to growth. So step number one, if you are in a funk right now, is to like ease up on yourself. Because the hardest part about being in a funk isn't actually the funk itself. It's what we say to ourselves because we're in a funk. Oh, you're fucking, like, you're just a loser. You can't seem to stay on track. Like, what the fuck? Like, why can't you get consistent? Why can't you be motivated? Why can't you be like Cole? Or why can't you be like Caleb? Why can't you be like Brian? Like, why can't you do these things? Like, what's wrong with you? Like, that is much more damaging than the funk itself. Like, funks in itself are natural. Like, we're human beings. And so if you're listening to this right now and you're currently in a funk, step one is to be compassionate, because you're a human. And I also experienced funk, and I experienced a lot of like lulls and funks in my online coaching business for the first few years. So really like ease up on yourself and be compassionate. If you're listening to this podcast, you're in the right place and you're on a positive like trajectory in your life. Okay. So 3 practical ways to get yourself out of a funk. You guys ready? 3 practical ways to get yourself out of a funk. Number 1. I do this every day, by the way. Number 1 is to listen to something that inspires you. Number 1 is to listen to something, write that down. Number 1 is to listen to something that inspires you. I know I'm super biased, but the reason I love the 10K Coaching Academy is because we have 10 coaching calls a fucking week, 10 live coaching calls per week. And so for my online coaches that are in the academy that are missing some inspiration, there is 10 opportunities for you to tune into a coaching call every single week. So not only do you get 5 podcast episodes a week from me, you also get practical, applicable, like actionable steps from people who are actually crushing their online fitness business 10 times a week. Step number 1 is, if you're in a funk, tune into something that inspires you. Listen to something that inspires you. Like for me, like I'm a big, like this is something that I still do every single day. You guys want to hear something weird that I think is true, but I overcome it with relentless effort? Is I think that like I'm natural, like I'm conditionally programmed to be a little bit more negative. I really do believe that. Like, I think that my conditioning when I was younger programmed me to be more negative, because like I dealt with like abuse. Like I saw like some super like crazy stuff that like a 5 to 7 year old kid shouldn't see. Moved around from house to house. Like I think my conditioning has me be more inherently negative. So you guys want to know how I fucking combat that? I like drown the negativity with success motivation. Like I listen to 2 hours of success motivation every fucking day. Literally. Like I have it playing when I'm doing my morning routine. I have it playing when I'm work. I like to listen to it while I work too, but I'm literally drowning my mind in success motivation. Like I'm like imprinting it on my subconscious mind. I'm like programming it into my brain. And I used this strategy for a long time to get myself out of a funk. Before I knew about morning rituals and everything like this, like whenever I'd feel like I was stressed or demotivated or I didn't want to work on my business, I would literally open up a 1 to 2 hour long success motivation track, and I would put it on and I would work on my fucking goals while like looking at my vision board, being like, this is the life that I want, and I'm willing to put in the work in order to get there. Step number 1, like one of the ways to get yourself out of a funk is to listen to something that inspires you. Maybe it's this podcast. Maybe this podcast is that thing that like gets you out of bed in the morning. Maybe this podcast is that thing that gives you that dose of inspiration, motivation. If that's the case, I'm super grateful. Maybe there's another podcast that you could listen to that's like inspires you, that motivates you, that excites you. Maybe it's success motivation. Maybe there's somebody that you follow on Instagram that's super inspirational, but listen to something that inspires you. Listen to something that motivates you. Listen to something that gives you a sense of hope that something else is possible other than the reality that you're living in now. I think that when we get into a funk, we start overthinking future outcomes and like where we're going and getting stressed about what could happen, or we're overthinking the past and thinking about, all the things that have happened without focusing on like what the fuck is actually possible right now if you focus on what's happening right now. Like focus on what you can do today, focus on what you can control. And one of the things you can control is like, yeah, you might be in a funk, but if you tune into something that inspires you and you tune into something that motivates you and you tune into a frequency that gets you excited, then that could get you out of a funk. And from that elevated mindset, you could start to accomplish some results. Right now, I think that one of the big things that a lot of people do, and I really think this is like a hard cycle to break, is that a lot of people, when they're in a funk, they don't try to do anything to change their state and elevate their mood. And they try to just work themselves out of a funk. But if you're in a super negative place and you just continue working on your business in a negative place without working on your fucking mindset too, then you're just going to create negative results, because you can't create positive results from a negative mind. And so one of the biggest things that you can do to get yourself out of a funk is to listen to something that inspires you. Listen to something that motivates you. Maybe it's Gary Vaynerchuk. Maybe it's B. Mark. I would, if it is me, I'm super grateful. Maybe it's Cole Da Silva. Maybe it's one of the coaching calls in the community. Maybe it's something or somebody that you know if you listen to them, you're going to feel better. That's number one. So write that down. Number one way to get yourself out of a funk is to listen to something that inspires you. Number two, número dos is to stop complaining and start stacking wins. Numero dos is to stop complaining and to start stacking wins. Yo, I'm going to say something to you guys that is going to hit. The way that you're feeling right now is a result of the things that you're saying to yourself. The way that you're feeling right now is a result of the things that you're saying to yourself. Like, it's literally impossible to be in a bad mood when you're like, my life's amazing. It's so good. I'm changing so many people's lives. I'm so grateful to be alive. I'm so fucking pumped about my physique. I'm so pumped about my fitness goals. I love what I'm doing. I'm making more than enough money. I have leads coming in. I'm excited. I'm working on something that, like, it's impossible to be in a bad fucking mood when you're saying those things to yourself. Here's where we start to get into a bad mood. Oh man, that sales call didn't close. Like, fuck my life. Like, I haven't had any leads reach out to me in the last week. This sucks. I can't seem to close anybody. This online fitness coaching thing isn't working. I fucking hate my job. I'm super annoyed that person cut me off. Like, what? Like, this is shitty. This is shitty. This is shitty. I'm in a funk. This sucks that I'm in a funk, right? That's how we get ourselves into a negative headspace, is we start complaining and then we keep complaining and then we just complain. And because we're complaining, it's like, have you guys ever heard of the concept reticular activation system? I don't know if you guys know what this means. So the simplest explanation for the reticular activation system is that your brain can only perceive what you're focusing on. Your brain can only perceive what you're focusing on. And so if I'm focused about on all of the negative things that are happening, it's called your RAS. If I'm focusing on all the negative things that are happening and all the things that are not going my way and all the negative things with COVID and all the negative things in my coaching business, all of a sudden we become hyper aware of all of the negative. And it's very easy for us to notice all the negative things because that's what our brain is tuned into. Whatever you focus on will expand. And so the way that we need to get ourselves out of a funk is to stop complaining about shit that isn't working and stop bitching and moaning. And guys, the hardest part about this is I feel like everybody complains about everything. Really, including myself. Like, I'm calling myself up. Last week on Wednesday, me and Kirsten did a little contest where for every time we complained out loud, we had to donate $5 to a charity. I complained out loud like 6 times in the first hour that we did this. And I was like, what the fuck? I'm like, I consider myself a pretty positive person. And I complained 6 times in the first hour. Stop complaining about shit. Like, every single time you talk to your mom or your friend about how your online coaching business isn't working, you're fucking complaining and you're creating more of it. Like, every single time you like bitch to yourself about how there's no leads on social media, like, you're complaining and you're creating more of it. And so you need to stop complaining and you need to start win stacking. And the way that you start stacking wins is me and Caleb, I like to say me and Caleb because he uses this theory frequently. Caleb's one of my head coaches in the academy. Talk about the +1, -1 theory momentum. And so the +1, -1 theory momentum means that if you want to get yourself out of a funk, you need to start like finding little things to celebrate. Like, as an example, let's use the scenario. Let's pretend you book a call and they say no to you and they hang up on your ass, right? And so you're like, man, I booked a call, they hung up on me, they said no, this fucking sucks, right? That's one way to look at it. Another way to look at it is like, yo, my content is so good that somebody actually booked a phone call with me and they almost bought my program. How fucking cool is that? See, it's the same experience, but a different perception of the experience. And what we focus on expands. And when we change the way that we look at things, the things we look at change. And so if we look at that same experience in a way that stacks a win versus complains about it, then we're going to feel good and empowered about that experience. And we might want to move on to the next one. Versus if we're like, oh man, somebody hung up on me and this fucking sucks. Like now we're not going to want to book another call because the last experience was super negative and we got this negative emotion attached to it. We're not excited about the fact that we booked a call because they said no to us and that sucks. And so if we stop complaining about things that aren't working and we start finding ways to stack little wins, what we focused on expands. And so all of a sudden your reticular activation system will go from all the things that are going wrong to all the things that are going right because you're choosing to look for wins to stack, right? So start stacking little wins. Give yourself credit for getting out of bed and showering. Give yourself credit for posting on social media. Give yourself credit for tuning into this podcast. This podcast, if you're tuning into it, is a win. You're getting yourself out of that funk. You're excited. You're getting yourself into a different state, and you should give yourself credit for that. Instead of being in your head being like, oh, Brian, you're such a fucking loser because you're in this funk. Like, no, Brian, like you're on a better path. You're getting better right now. You're listening to something that inspires you. You're one step closer. You're doing amazing. I'm proud of you. Like, give yourself fucking credit and start stacking little wins. Does that make sense? So number one is to listen to something that inspires you. Number two is to stop complaining and start stacking wins. Number two is to stop complaining and to start stacking wins. Okay, number three. I'm actually going to do four. I didn't have four written down, but I'm going to do four. Number three is create a small list and execute the shit out of it. Create a small list and execute the shit out of it. I feel like a lot of people get into a funk where they feel stuck and plateaued and not in momentum because, you know, they're not moving forward and they feel like they're falling behind, and then they end up doing fucking nothing, right? And then because they're doing nothing, now they feel overwhelmed because they're like, and they feel like they're falling further and further and further behind. So the third way to get yourself out of a funk is to create a small list and execute the shit out of it. So instead of being like, oh man, I have to do all of these 15 things, erase 10 of them, focus on 5 of them, and really like go all in on those 5. Like if it's post on TikTok, then make some good fucking TikToks, right? If it's like it generate leads for an hour, like then actually generate leads for an hour. If it's watch a video in the PT Dom course, then it's actually watch and actually study and actually take notes, right? So don't like erase your big to-do list because your big to-do list might be a part of the reason that you're in the funk. Erase this big idea that you need to get all of it done. Create a small list of like 3 to 5 things and execute those 3 to 5 things. And as you're executing those 3 to 5 things, give yourself credit. Be like, yo, I'm doing it. I'm doing it. I'm doing it. I'm doing a good job. I'm doing a good job. So create and execute on a super small to-do list. All right. So that's number 3. Number 4, I actually just came up with this as I was doing the podcast. So number 4 is if you're in a funk because you're taking action and it's not working, then number 4 is to ask for feedback. Ask for help. If you're in a funk right now, and the reason you're in a funk is because you're taking massive action and it's not working, then ask for feedback. Einstein says the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. Is that correct? I'm going to be honest with you. I've talked about this in the podcast frequently. I was in a TikTok funk for a little while there. As I talked about this frequently in the podcast because there's a lesson here. I was in a TikTok funk for a while. And so how did I get myself out of a TikTok funk? I asked for help. I found a TikTok mentor and I hired them. And as a result, my TikTok videos are doing better. And because they're doing better, I have more value to share with you guys. But if I would have continued to do the same video style over and over and over again without asking for help, without asking for feedback, then I would have never grown I would have never gone through my funk. I would have continued to do the same thing. And Einstein says the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. And so if you're an online fitness coach and you're posting on social media three to 5 times a week and you're not signing clients, like, you're doing something fucking wrong. And if you don't know what that thing, like, you don't know what that thing is, otherwise you would have solved the problem already. And you can't solve a problem in the same level of consciousness that created the problem. So if you you are the creation, you're the one that created the fact that you're not getting any clients, and then you're trying to solve the problem of not getting any clients, but you don't know how to solve the problem, otherwise you would have already done it. You're going to continue to do the same thing over and over again. You're going to continue to spin your wheels. This is why it's important to not only have friends around you that inspire you, but have friends above you that you can learn off of. Like, have mentors and coaches and people that can guide you and help you. And for me, it's the same thing, you guys. Like, I'm always willing to ask for help. I'm always leaning on people that are smarter than me to get me there faster. And so the fourth way to get yourself out of a funk is if you're posting consistently and you're generating leads and you're booking calls and you're not making sales, then you need to ask for help. And this is the same thing. If you're listening to this right now and you're inside of the 10K Coaching Academy, I'm talking directly to you. If you're in the academy, you're watching the videos, and for some reason it's not working, but you're struggling in silence, like, you need to reach out and you need to ask for help. You need to make a post in the community and say, like, hey guys, like, really struggling with XYZ. I've been really trying. It's not working. Like, ask us for help, because that's what we're here for. Like, there's not only me, but you have 5 other coaches that care deeply about your results. And so if you want to get results and you're in a funk and it's just not working, be sure to ask for help. All right. So let's go over the 4 ways. It did say 3, but it's 3 plus bonus ways, because I'm not going to change the name of the pod. 3 plus bonus way to get yourself out of a funk. Number 1 is to listen to something that inspires you. Could be a person, a podcast, a coaching course, whatever it is. Listen to something that inspires you. I listen to Success Motivation every single day. Number 2 is to stop complaining and start stacking wins. It's really easy to complain about everything that's going wrong. And the truth is, it's also really easy to relate to people by complaining, because everybody fucking complains. So you'll find that a lot of people are just gossiping and complaining about other people or their circumstance. Don't contribute to that gossip. Instead, find some ways to stack some wins. All right. Number 3 is to make a small to-do list and execute. A lot of people get into funks because they're not doing anything. And so to get yourself out of procrastination, instead of giving yourself this giant, big, grandiose list, make a list of 5 things and execute the shit out of it. And number 4 is, if you're in a funk because you're taking action and nothing's working, you're demotivating, ask for help. Ask for help. Ask a coach, a mentor, a guide, somebody that is further than you in the journey that you wish to go on. Ask them for help and ask them for feedback so that you can get yourself one step closer to the result that you want. All right. So guys, that's it. That's all. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is the Change Lives, Make Money Online Training Podcast, the #1 show for online fitness coaches who are trying to grow a successful online business. If you guys want to be entered to win $1,000 cash, this includes you on Clubhouse. All you have to do is screenshot any podcast episode, share it to your Instagram stories, tag me at BMarkFit. Let me know you're tuning in, and you're automatically entered to win $1,000 cash. Peace, love, protein. Have the best day of your entire life, and I'll talk to you soon. Let's go.